Good afternoon. Welcome back to United TV. Manchester United, we saw last night, too many deal was never going to happen. That's off. Manchester United signed Santos. That's going to be medical, I think, today, possibly as quick as that. And we're seeing a lot of news now regarding Ederson and his potential second medical, whether it's going to be successful or not. And there's a lot of different sources saying this. So it does seem to be something that would be quite rare for a medical to not work. I mean, Ederson playing a lot of football as well. He doesn't miss many matches. And he did have a preliminary medical, like part one of the medical, I think people are describing it, in the USA. And it was always going to be, he was always going to have a second medical in the UK. And I don't know whether they're just timing it to get the medicals done with Ederson and maybe Santos at the same time. But there's a lot of speculation coming from Fabrizio, coming from Ben Jacobs, coming from actually a few different journalists based in Brazil as well. ESPN reporting this as well. I think you've got Brazilian journalists on Sky, you've got national newspapers in the UK, and you've got Twitter accounts. You've literally got every single range of media suggesting that there's something in the Edison deal that's going to mean it's not going to go through. I still think until we see it otherwise, I'm assuming he's a Manchester United player. Most medicals you generally think are going to go through. One thing I have seen, I suppose, a little bit is a bit of a backlash regarding some of the transfers as well, where people don't want this deal to go through. And I did see this morning and last night as well, when people talk about the Edison deal, whether there's a chance it doesn't go through, some people are actually hoping it doesn't go through. And there is another story we'll be looking at as well. MANU KONE is a player on Man United's shortlist as well. We will be discussing this one. I think this is one that might be easy to talk about as well, given that in terms of this one, I saw this comment from Vril. He replaced too many in the French national team, 25 years old. I think this is going to be potentially maybe this would be a more exciting option for Manchester United because we're watching him play in the World Cup alongside Rabiot for France. Looks quite good. I mean, the Paraguay game is not the best game of football to make any sort of assessment because it was pretty much French players being kicked for 90 minutes and then an Mbappe penalty won the game. So I think that's probably not the best game of football to assess him on. But it might be it might be a bit more exciting for Man United fans than maybe what we've seen in terms of like now a lot of people were a bit negative about the Santos deal, but I think the price is going to be about the same. So apparently he would be potentially costing about the same. So he'll be looking at about 50 million pounds as well for the Roma player. So this is kind of the two stories. So we're going to start off with Edison and part two of the medical. It's supposed to be happening pretty soon. What are people's thoughts regarding this one? I think it's 35 million pounds. I think most people thought, no, not quite a cheap deal, but it's not going to be the most exciting. But it does bring some experience at playing at playing for Atalanta in the Champions League. And I think in terms of this one, salary is going to be quite low. I just think it depends on the transfer window as a whole, whether you're positive about this deal or not. If Manchester United had signed too many, as unrealistic as that seems, I think people wouldn't be scrutinising these deals. And I think in terms of marquee signings, I don't know if there's actually any players left on the market that would be deemed a marquee signing. I think at the moment, yeah, I think at the moment it's not going to be. We're not going to get a marquee signing. So I think if people want to see that, then yeah, you have to probably forget a marquee signing, and maybe Man United are going to spend a bit more on the rest of their team. But in terms of this story, what are people's thoughts regarding Edison? Andy says if they wanted to put out the deal, they would have done so. They must still want the player, otherwise, they wouldn't book the second medical in surely. I think with this one, I don't know for sure, but when they were reporting it, it's like the first medical was always going to be like a more of a quick check than a medical, I think, and the official medical was always going to be done in the UK. I'm wondering whether the it was described as a preliminary medical as well. But I think it was not necessarily Ben Jacobs, but it was another journalist that did say, and they did actually publish this as well, saying, and I think medical should probably be confidential, but they did publish it saying that they saw a potential issue they want to look into. So I don't know whether, again, we have seen this in the past where you get one medical done abroad, and maybe that's just an easy filter, and then they just want to look at things in detail. I said that before. I would be a bit surprised if this deal didn't happen, mainly because we're looking at a player that doesn't miss many games and that doesn't have a lot of injury issues. So it would be a bit of a strange one if that did actually happen as well. Looking at So I wouldn't worry about whether the player's Brazilian or not. We've had good Brazilian players play for Man United. We've had disappointing ones as well. So I won't worry too much about. At the moment, I'd say Brazil national team doesn't look like exactly the best quality football team at the moment. So maybe, yeah, maybe this one, like I think Santos is one player we talked about yesterday. He was in the short list before they went down to 27 players. So it will be a Brazilian player in the future, and maybe people's opinions will change somewhat of him. But is there anybody watching that wants the Ederson deal to not happen? Because I thought I'd do a quick poll just to gauge opinion on this. I thought it might be a bit of a split. I think if we talked about the deal yesterday, there was quite a few people that didn't really want the Santos deal to happen. I think you probably just have to. I would say you probably just have to wait and see how it works out. I think to try and guess how Santos is going to work in Manchester United is quite difficult. Is he going to be a starting player? Is he going to be more rotation? We don't know that yet. And at the moment, if Ederson and Santos are the first two players and Kone ends up being the third one, then I think most people would be surprised that there isn't a bigger name or someone that's going to be an obvious first team player. Because based on that shortlist, you'd probably say, I don't know, that you've got Kone does actually get games for the French midfield in the World Cup. You'd say he's got to be ahead of Santos, surely. But it would seem that maybe Man United have bought three players that there isn't an obvious starter and a backup. It would be quite difficult to say. Marcus is saying this is the most uninspiring transfer window I've known. Do you think you'd change your mind if different players came in? Like we're talking about, two players come in so far, and maybe this transfer window is going to be difficult to assess because when you're signing Santos, he doesn't play a lot for Chelsea, and when you're signing Ederson, a lot of people don't watch Serie A, and I think with Kone as well, unless you watch Roma, there's probably not lots to go on, and it's going to be a bit of a tricky one to say. Blas says you're reserving judgment. I would probably agree and say I'm going to reserve judgment. I think with Ederson, when Man United signed Ederson, my first reaction was that's quite a cheap deal. It does give us capacity to probably spend bigger on the second midfielder. If the second and third midfielder end up being £50 million deals, it feels like we're going a bit cheap. And it depends on what Man United do in the rest of the window. If Man United spend quite big on a left back, I think a lot of people might change their mind and have a different view on it. And if we do actually get other players, lined up as well, maybe we'll have a different opinion. But I think there's going to be an overwhelming kind of backdrop of negativity because a lot of sources said Manchester United are going to get a flagship signing, and at the moment we don't see that, do we? So we don't see someone that's going to come in and be a marquee signing, and I think that's why a lot of fans probably I don't know if it's rightly or wrongly so, but I think a lot of fans are going to be disappointed regarding that one. So let's go into the comments, and if you've got thoughts or comments and questions, please get them in. This is like because it won't be the longest stream as well. Bilal says, "I don't think this deal is off." So, no, I don't think this deal is off either. One piece of news I saw as well that Yarli's alluding to in the comments is that which shirt number would I give Santos? No idea at this point. I don't know. It depends on what his role is going to be. I wouldn't give him like a prominent shirt number until he's proved himself. So maybe a higher squad number to start with. Yanni says Newcastle tried to hijack Santos, and this was I did see the Marco Alcaraz story this morning, and because we covered the Santos deal, I haven't got a screenshot of that one, but journalists are saying that Newcastle tried to hijack the Santos deal. This was I think this was probably posted this morning, but Newcastle tried to hijack the Santos deal. They offered him a better contract, but Santos decided not to go to Newcastle and to take the offer that Manchester United made. He did actually request to leave Chelsea as well. And I think this is one of those situations where Santos has pretty much he's probably done what Ineos want in terms of he's prioritised Manchester United. It's the same way as Sesko. And when you say that's 4-0, are you talking is that Embuemo, Sesko, Cunha, and now Santos? I think at the moment Newcastle are going to sign some players. They've got some money coming in, but I'd be surprised. Maybe when we're looking at transfer window unfold, what player goes to Newcastle now, knowing that they're pretty much having a fire sale? I would suggest that some of the players that Newcastle might have tried to get 12 months ago are probably looking at Newcastle now, thinking Like, what the hell's going to happen with this club? You've got Bruno Guimaraes, Tonali, Gordon, maybe Hall leaving in one window. Maybe the manager goes as well. I think there'd be other players now that you're not going to renew your contract at Newcastle because you're going to be a mid-table team. Like all those players leaving, money's going to come in, but the thing is, money's going to come in. I don't think Newcastle can buy a better football player than Guimaraes, or they're going to attract a better football player. Some of the up and coming talents that might be 40, 50, 60 million. Why would you go to Newcastle? There's like a lot of other options at the moment. But no, I did see that. So it looks like Santos has prioritised his career, which I think is yeah, that's probably good news, I suppose. Maybe the question is going to be, what would be the third midfielder you'd sign if Ederson and Santos are number one and two? What would be the third midfield? Like Wharton is one option. I think I've seen people say Belieber is an option as well, although he would feel to be like that is quite expensive. There's a few attractive options across Europe where you look at Berardi, you look at Sangari still, they're still available. So they would be potentially good options. Andy's saying that you think Wharton would sort out midfield. I think line breaking passes, Wharton is up there, isn't he? He's one of the best. I think defensively his work is decent as well. So he would be a decent option. I think you'd maybe question a few things, but yeah, it's not the easiest one, is it? United Dice says, I agree with Andy. Wharton would have been a better option. I think the difference, I'll say the difference. I think with this one, Wharton's going to be £100 million, isn't he? And maybe that United don't want to pay 100 million. It does seem to be, you know how I said a month ago that it feels a bit like there's a cap. It feels a bit like there's a ceiling a bit which Manchester United will not pay beyond. And maybe it is going to be about that £70 million. And at the moment, I don't think Man United's if you look at every player that's on the market, once they go past that 70, 75 million, Man United are not interested. So they weren't interested in Tonali. The one that maybe would divide opinion a little bit is you got Bruno Guimaraes, £60 million. Um, I know he's on the age where you think, okay, Ineos aren't interested in that age profile, but he's one that probably would give a bit of experience, and that would be one where I think I can understand why. I can kind of see why people wouldn't go for him based on his age. But I think he's proven himself a decent midfielder in the Premier League. He might have been a good option as well. But so Yannis says United looking for two more midfielders on top of Ederson and Santos, which would be four midfielders. So it could be that when we're looking at who's going to be number three, maybe that's happening at Yali. Maybe we're going to have a transfer window that is pretty much predominantly midfield, and maybe instead of three like maybe reasonably expensive players. I thought we might spend close to 200 million or maybe like 180, 190 million pounds on three midfielders. Maybe we're going to spend the same amount of money, but it's going to be spread across three midfielders. If you think about it, you've got Santos, 50 million pounds, you've got Kone about 50 million, and you've got Edison, who's cost 35 million. So 135 spent so far. If you're looking at another deal, the question would be then would like what would be the fourth signing? How much money would you be able to how much money would you be able to spend on that one? Obviously, it's not going to be a very expensive one. If it's someone like Sangare, like if you got Kone plus Sangare, it would be. I think it'd be a bit of an eye opener. To be honest, I think a lot of people have rated Sangare, and maybe Angela Stiller is someone we still looked at as well. I don't think Belieber comes in based on the price expectation we've got at the moment. Like Belieber was now, there's rumours that he's going to be that the price that we see Brighton might want would maybe make it prohibitively expensive. Like I think it could be too expensive to get that deal done, and maybe that's the reason why it doesn't happen. But I think overall, you'd look at it and say, I think that Belieber's a decent player, but I think the valuation is too much. I don't think Man United are going to pay close to how much Brighton are going to want, and I think that would make it pretty difficult as well. So let's go on to Kone. Maybe I should have done a poll and actually say, do you think that, just a quick question, yes, no, do you think Edison deal actually happens? Like, I think it's going to be a done deal and we're just waiting. I think it's just a matter of time and we're just hearing the story that I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember too many medicals that actually failed when we got to this stage. So I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be called off at all. Winners of better, welcome to the comments. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Says, you don't think there's any chance we sign four midfielders and say they go set up for three? I would say, given like they got Manu already, you've got a couple of academy players coming through. I would be surprised if Manchester United signed four midfielders. Like we're effectively replacing too many. We're replacing Agate, and we're probably replacing Toby Collier. And I think beyond that, we're probably going to have as like a fifth option. It depends if Mason Mount gets loaned out, but I'd imagine the academy players will make up those options. And I think we might be looking at potentially uh, on the basis of these transfers, I think we're going to see Santos is going to play a lot more football than he did last season for Chelsea. And I think we're going to see, obviously, Kobe Mainoo is going to be in the team pretty much from day one, where last season, you could probably say Kobe Mainoo didn't really play much until January, did he? So instead of having Agate and Casemiro, we're going to have a very different midfield. And so to go onto the Manu Kone story, what are people's thoughts regarding this one? This one is I think this one is one where I don't know what people's thoughts are, whether this is perceived as a good signing or a bad signing. He wasn't really talked about until very recently. And if you look at his track record, like playing for Roma, I think he goes under the radar a little bit because people don't watch too much Serie A. But I think he's clearly like one for the future with France as well. 25 years old, good international experience. You'd probably question like domestically, it's very difficult. So I wouldn't really draw too many conclusions from what you see in the Italian league. And I think for me, the one thing I would say about players in Italy is he able to replicate what he does for Roma at Manchester United? The Premier League is going to be obviously a completely different situation for him, but he's going to be around about £50 million apparently, which seems quite cheap for someone that's French international. So I think with this one, you've got two options. You've got two players coming in now. Where you've got Santos, who I think, if you fast forward 2 years time, in 2 years' time, I think Santos will be in the Brazil midfield. He made the 55-man squad, but got cut in the 27. If you look at like Bruno Guimaraes' age, Casemiro, I think that these players, their time at the top is probably more limited. I think Casemiro, in terms of like international football, they should probably look at moving him on fairly soon. And I think someone like Santos will then play way more games, and his value is just going to go up. So I know people are disappointed about Santos, but I think Santos's value, if we have a conversation in about 6 months' time, I think we'll have a different angle. Now looking at Kone, he's already an international for France. I think I can't remember how many games he's played. Is it 17 or something? But he's stepping in for too many when too many gets injured. So he's made the shortlist. I would say there's obviously a good player here. The question is going to be, is it good enough for what Man United need? I think when we saw too many, we saw like a level up from Kone. I mean, Kone is like the right age. I think in terms of like giving him like a 6 year contract. The price is quite cheap, which makes me actually a little bit skeptical because you don't get much for your money in this market. So a French international that's costing £50 million is a little bit suspicious, but we'll see. Like United Tadai says, I'm a bit suspicious about the price. Like 50 million. When I saw that, I mean, he could potentially like we know too many supposed to be missing. I don't know if too many's going to miss the match tonight, but he was supposed to be back fairly soon. But we could potentially be seeing a World Cup winner that might play minutes in the final. So the 45, £50 million price tag, it feels cheap. That's what I'm saying. So it feels a little bit cheap. Um, Mark says you're fuming. I think it's honestly it's difficult to for me to get angry about something that I've not seen. Like when I look at Santos, I I can't say I've seen a huge amount of games where he's played. Like he came on against us, I think, and he looked okay. But I could see when I know a lot of people might watch multiple channels, and there was a clip this morning from the Chelsea content creator Mar, and he was saying that he rated Santos as the second best midfielder at Chelsea after Caicedo in terms of availability, quality, dependability. And there was probably a long list of players that he would prefer to sell. Again, okay, this is the opinion of a football fan. and there's a few other people that have similar views, but a lot of people from Man United side question it. I don't know whether people are just disappointed in Santos personally, or whether they're just looking at it and think, yeah. I'll say this, Andy. I've watched a bit of France. Rabiot looks pretty good actually, and I've never said I want to see Rabiot at Manchester United. He's been linked maybe a couple of years ago, and but no, Rabiot's looked good in France as well. And Gaz says, yeah, I remember what you should do is if you're new to the channel, you should look at the videos we did and look at the streams. I think there's a really long too many stream, probably about 2 months ago, and it was the first story. And I'm pretty sure the first few minutes of that, I did say this feels like contract negotiation. I've probably lost track of how many players have Man United been linked to, and I think Gareth Bale over the years, other Real Madrid players, and it's always been like contract negotiation time, and it just felt the same energy. And when they got Jose Mourinho, who loves the CDM, loves the world class CDM, I just thought it just didn't make any sense at all. But no, I think most people, Gaz. One thing I thought was strange was every time. Okay, when I saw this, I read too many back, and I was thinking that the next word better not be on. No, I think with too many. I think most people thought it was contract negotiation time and it's unrealistic. The thing that maybe threw me a little bit was every time we did a stream and I put a poll of the question just to gauge people's opinions, there was always like 40% of people saying it was going to happen. And I think until it categorically can't happen, I think people have always got a bit of hope and they hope something can happen. But I think it was always going to be difficult for Man United to get this deal done. And these sort of deals are going to be, again, this one's going to be one where if you're looking at the cost of these players, £50 million is quite cheap in the midfield market. But also, I would say £50 million on Agate is money wasted. So you can look at these deals as being quite cheap, but you can still waste money at these price points. So if Man United signed, say, Ederson's obviously even cheaper, but if Man United signed Kone, Santos for £50 million, they can still be disappointing. They can still flop. But on the plus side, they could be yeah, I suppose that the ceiling is they actually work out being very good buys for Man United. I mean, the difference, I suppose, is going to be probably the best case scenario would be Anderson leaving Newcastle for 35 million, and maybe think to it for a reasonable amount of people. I think Anderson went under the radar, joined Newcastle. Sorry, left Newcastle, joined Forest, and it was maybe like a few months later people started noticing. So it could be. I'm not going to say it's going to be the same sort of thing. That's probably the best case scenario for Manchester United. And at the moment, I'd say I'm not fuming, but I'm just going to be open minded and say we'll see what happens because I think it's very difficult to judge what happens. If Man United, I've said this a few times, if these transfers really flop, then I think that a lot of the anger is going to be directed at Ineos because these do feel like cheaper signings. And I don't mind getting cheaper signings if they work, but it's very difficult to say. It's very difficult to have an argument or a rational discussion at the moment because we haven't seen these players play for Man United. So at the moment, it's all hypothetical whether you think they're going to be good or not, and it's pretty tricky. Be it you, niche fan, welcome over to the chat as well. Yeah, if this window goes south, then I think fans will be. This is the one transfer window where there were a lot of football players available. And okay, Anderson might be off the table because he chooses to go to Man City, but Fernandez was there to be done. Tonali was a deal to be done as well. We've got João Gomez is still a deal to be done. Buwadi, Angelo Stiller, and I think you got Santos and Edison, for example. So I think there's a long list of players that Man United could sign. Okay, there's a couple you can't. Like we can't get too many because obvious reasons. We couldn't get Anderson because he prioritised City, and it might be that Man United weren't serious in that one, but there's reasons for it. But if you look at this, there is a lot of options on the table now. So I think most fans now could still probably pick out a couple of players that I think would transform the window. Whether it's like a Buwadi, Sangare, I think there's going to be a few players people could look at and say, if Man United sign those players, it's going to be a good window. And Kone, I think for me, I've seen a lot of people very positive about this one, and maybe that's in terms of this one. Is there going to be? Is there a preference actually? If Man United signed Kone, Would you be happier with Kone over Santos, or for people that don't like these deals, is it just that that Man United should have got maybe a different player? I mean, too many's not available now, so who would you go for? Because I think that one of the questions I would have is like clearly the Fernandes thing is gone. Manchester United now have to sign a couple more midfielders. If they're looking at Santos and Edison as a done deal, which potentially we might find out today, like Wizardbet says, you think it happens? I think it does happen. His injury record is very good. I think they just haven't done a proper medical in the USA. I think they've done a preliminary and they just need to do it properly. And that's we're talking about tens of millions, even though it seems cheap in transfer talk. It's still something you've got to make sure you get right. There's no point spending £35 million and not doing a proper medical. So it's good they're doing the medical check. And usually it's formality, but in this instance, there just seems to be a few stories where people are querying a little bit. Um, but he missed what 10 games. Yeah, I think his record is pretty exceptional as well. But the question would be, is if Man United got one more player they can sign, and we think that's probably the case. If you got Santos done, that's I think that's medical today, potentially tomorrow, but that's going to be wrapped up. Edison probably medical today, wrapped up. You can get one more player in. I think people then look at Kone. He's going to be scrutinised more because the last player, most people think only three midfielders. So you've got to get the best available one, surely. Nice says this is a nightmare and say forget staying in the Champions League. Well, we'll probably find out quite quickly. Find out quite quickly. Um, Maybe what I'll do is welcome D Hex says rumors that were interested. Let me find that one. So yeah, maybe what I could do is say Lucas Harrington from Australia, 6'4". Okay, if you if you can leave a comment on a video, I'll try and remember it. My memory is not amazing. So Lucas Harrington. Okay, what we might look at is if Manchester United are going to sign one more player, what would be the best possible option? We're going to put Kone in the mix as a consideration because, as far as we can see, what I'm seeing in this transfer window is I'm seeing stories come out and then very, very quickly something's happened. Like Edison, very rapid. We saw I think I covered Santos about 3 days before it was pretty much here we go. So that was quite rapid in terms of what's happened. I think Manchester United are certainly not leaking information to the media. And so, would it be a good thing if Edison deal falls through? One third of people saying yes, but most people say no. It wouldn't be a good thing. So I'm going to put this one as an option. So put some names in the chat who you want in the poll. So best possible third signing, and I think this one is going to be. There's a few big names you can put in. I can only put four. I can only put four names in a poll. So best possible third signing. I think we've got to put Baradi in there and Sangare. I would say we've got to put Kone in there for sure. As he's like the one we're talking about and is linked. What do you think is the third option? I mean, Bawadi, Kone, Sangare. Should we put someone like Wharton in there? Like Adam Wharton ticks a few boxes. I think a lot of people do like him. Andy says you think Wharton's one. Ryan says Belieber. Oh, there's a lot of options, isn't there? The thing is that Angela Stiller, there's too many options to have a poll of four. So best possible third signing. I think who should we put in there then? We've got Sangare, Bawadi, Kone. Do you think Adam Wharton's too expensive? Because I'm thinking, I think Wharton would be potentially too expensive for Man United. Should we put, or maybe Alex Scott as well? Alex Scott as an option. God, when you think about it, there's actually a ridiculous amount of players linked to Man United. So maybe we've got to put Alex Scott in there. Maybe we should take Bawardi out because we're not seeing a lot of energy from Man United for him. So maybe we should replace Bawardi with. I'm trying to think. I think Alex Scott has to go in there. I think Belieber has to probably go in there based on situations. So maybe Belieber, Kone. Is Sangari a credible option, do you think? It's a difficult one. No, I think this is just illustrating that there's a lot of options out there. So this transfer window can still be either saved or ruined based on whatever you think of the previous deals. But leave Buwadi in, Kone. Okay, let's put Buwadi back in. Okay, and I think should we put rough prices against these players just to provide some sort? I think Buwadi's going to be 85 million, so we have to put that in. Kone would be 50 million. Sangari, I think, is going to be. He's probably going to be. Is Sangari going to be 50 to 60? I'd imagine like it's not going to be loads cheaper. So maybe 50 to 60 for that one. And Alex Scott, apparently he's going to be 80. I don't know if I agree with that valuation, but apparently about 80 million. So we can put 80 million pounds for Alex Scott as a price. This is kind of. I think these prices are probably quite close to what might actually happen. You can maybe get a little bit of cheap, like a little bit cheaper for Alex Scott. If Alex Scott refuses to sign a contract, yeah, there could be. Yanni says they're really putting out a lot of drama on a very simple medical. Why is there so much drama with this club? I don't know. I think that with Manchester United and Real Madrid and too many, I think you've got Manchester United. It's like a click-based paradise, isn't it? And you've got Real Madrid who are just the same. And I think when you've got one sort of player that is being linked to like the drama with Valverde and the drama with like, is he going to leave Real Madrid and Man United linked? I think that's why it's such a big story. So let's do the poll there. So I've got the poll and best possible third signing. Mark's saying this club don't care about trophies. It's getting towards that stage, isn't it? Where I think you can kind of like give a bit of leeway maybe a couple of years ago, but I think things are moving on now and expectation is going up. Like United do have to try and Amazon. Yeah, we're probably going to see a bit more information. Do you think the Amazon is going to be very filtered, very watered down? That I'd imagine that I think the Amazon. I did say yesterday it's going to be like a PR wank fest. I still think it's going to be that. I think the Amazon documentary is essentially a way for Manchester United to try and get investment in the club and get people to get. It feels a bit like it's more a big shareholder project. I'd be very surprised if there's much negativity in that documentary. I don't think Man United are going to be. Uh, yeah, it's going to be more edited than something coming out of North Korea, isn't it? It's going to be. I think you're going to get more freedom of speech on North Korean internet and social media than you are from a Manchester United Amazon documentary. But we'll see. I mean, I don't have that Amazon Prime, but I might see if I can, you know, maybe get a trial, have a look at see what they're doing. But I'd imagine it's going to be watered down and heavily edited. But we'll see. So Spanish reporters saying United travelling to Real Madrid. They're here now. So is this where Man United having a board meeting? I don't know. The media is relentless, isn't it? Like really relentless. I think one thing I would say complimentary about Manchester United is they seem to have actually stopped leaks of information that nobody saw this coming. And I think if you look back on a few of the journalists that tend to be in the knows, there was you can probably just check on like Twitter, just Google like too many, or just put too many into the search, and look at a lot of people that were saying they were trying to guarantee they were saying too many is happening. These are the reasons why it's definitely happening. I think people need to be a bit more like people aren't stupid. People know that this is going to be some spin for a contract, and it might know there was a chance that Man United could sign him, but everybody thought it was quite unrealistic. And Brabham says they keep banging on about the stadium today. I saw this as well, and I'm ignoring new stadium news because I think new stadium is a distraction. Okay, Man United will get a new stadium at some point, but Manchester United acquiring a piece of land and an architect drawing a picture is not really relevant at the moment. Like, let's see the building go up first, and then let's see how much they're going to rip off season ticket holders. I think that the building a new stadium it's that for me again. It should be something that Man United fans are positive about whether it was going to be a new stadium or whether it was going to be renovating Old Trafford. Like you've got to move with the times. Manchester United were falling behind, But I think even this, the Glazers seem to turn it into something that's making fans angry. So I don't know whether it's just like the owners are so unpopular that it doesn't really matter what they say. I think at the moment, the Glazers and Jim Radcliffe could probably unveil Mbappe to many and Haaland, and Manchester United fans will still be like, go and get these people out of my club. And I think you can't. I don't think you can undo 2 decades of neglect. Uh, but yeah, I would say with you, Ryan, as well. I mean, I don't want to be like an Arsenal where we're playing in a brand new stadium and watching absolute shit football. So I think again, it's like Spurs are in 2 relegation fights, but wow, look at how the bar works. Look at how the pint glasses fill up on the. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Like, do you think Spurs fans are there going, "Oh, this is brilliant. We can watch American football in our stadium." You can watch American football, but when you watch actual football, you watch a load of shit and you're paying a fortune for it. So I think Spurs fans that had a massive season ticket price and then watched absolute shit football for years probably weren't particularly happy about that one. They might be very happy now they got Tonali, but they won't be happy if their season ticket prices go up to reflect this, will they? So a big up to you, David, in the chat. Thanks you. Yeah, I think the to be honest, I did put loads of emojis on the channel to represent like legends of the game, Eric Cantona, Beckham. But at the moment, the one that's always used the most is Glazers out. I mean, that's kind of the one thing we can disagree on every single transfer, can't we? Every single player is linked to Manchester United, every single like thing. But when it comes to like the Glazers, that's the one thing. That's probably the only thing every Man United fan does agree on. So let's just go back for the rest of the stream, focusing on transfers. What are you thinking regarding, say, number three? So is Kone going to be good enough? Like, would you be happy if it was Kone, Santos, and a third Kone? Because I think when you talk about three midfielders, I think I was just expecting not necessarily a bigger name because that just yeah, what's the name? But I think I was looking at someone that I would feel right. Drop them in the first team. Our team's massively improved, and in terms of midfielders that were available, I was looking at Elliot Anderson, to many. I think Bawadi is like probably on the periphery of that as well, but he was going to be someone that would be, potentially a bit better in the future as well. But I think some people said Bruno Guimaraes, although age profile maybe doesn't match what Ineos want. Yeah, I got tired of the Glazers when we sold Cristiano Ronaldo and replaced him with who was it we got? Was it Obertan, Valencia, Michael Owen? Yeah, I kind of like lost I lost faith in the Glazers very, very early on. But I think we were lucky to kind of ride with the team we already had at that point. Okay, says, I think, yeah, everything would be much, much better about the Glazers. If Manchester United invested the money in the first team and didn't have owners siphoning money out. I remember when I saw a graph about a year ago, and it was how much money had the owners put in, and think it was like at the top of the chart was Man City's owners putting in crazy money. I think Newcastle put in a decent amount. I think a lot of other owners put in a decent amount. And Manchester United was rock bottom with Manchester United's owners taking out 1 billion. So it is that outrageous, isn't it? It's like we don't even need like someone to come in and pump money into the club. It's literally just don't take money out of the club and it'll be absolutely fine. United Dice says realistically win nothing. What do you think then? To go back to transfers, what are you thinking regarding if they, yeah, no, what do you think then regarding like the third signing? Would Kone, if Man United got Kone, is that going to be the Andros Santos rumor is true? So it's not a rumor; it's here we go, like Fabrizio and David Ornstein. So that transfer has actually happened. Well, it's going. I think the medical might even be today. So it was here we go last night, and we covered that story yesterday on the channel, but it's pretty much a done deal. So I think I can just quickly share with what I was putting out yesterday. Manchester United agreement with Chelsea, 48 plus two add-ons. So the add-ons are going to be like negligible. And I think a medical is expected to take place in, is it 24, 48 hours? 10% sell-on clause of that deal. So £50 million is going to be the deal. So that's pretty much a done deal. I think we're probably just waiting for official medical, and I think that there is probably. I mean, isn't that? I think Amazon's starting filming today, so maybe they're looking at Edison and Santos. Here we go. Like I say, both deals announced the same day. So I think the Edison deal is pretty much happening. I think this is the one where it was. I don't think this is Is this breaking news necessarily this morning? I think it was like being talked about loads this morning, and it looks like a £50 million deal. I'll say at the moment, if I see a news story that says Manchester United are interested or breaking news, and it comes out of nowhere, it actually looks like it's got more credibility now, and it looks like because the price is low, I'm believing these deals. Like when I saw about Edison and you see about the price, you think, okay, yeah, I can see that happening. And I think I did think with Santos, it happened so quickly that I did one stream thinking, right, is Santos a good signing? And then the next 2 days later, it's pretty much like, here we go, and it's a done deal. So yeah, it's pretty surprisingly quick, isn't it? Genghis says £50 million is a fair price in this current inflated market. So is this for Kone or is this for is this for Santos? I think the thing is this transfer window market. Then I think at the moment I don't think fans have caught up to how expensive some of these are. Because probably a month ago we had a serious conversation, or maybe 2 months ago, and I think most of us didn't think Anderson was going to cost over 100. And I think most of us thought Tonali would not cost 100 million, and most people thought that the price for Matheus Fernandes was going to be substantially lower. So all these prices have gone crazy. So maybe with Santos costing 50 million, maybe that would have cost 35 million pounds like 6 months ago, possibly. And maybe with this one, the Kone one for me, I don't know. I'm a bit suspicious of the price. Like 50 million for a French international playing in the World Cup just seems a bit like what. My question is like, what's wrong with him? Like, why is Kone a cheap deal? Like, £50 million gets you nothing in this window. £50 million is £35 million less than Matheus Fernandes. Matheus Fernandes didn't get into the Portuguese team, and the Portuguese team was largely pretty rubbish in terms of performance. But we see Kone in the French team replaces too many. Looks like he's playing well. Looks like a good player. Looks like he's got a lot of attributes to fit in nicely. Why is the price so low? Like, what was the deal with this? Is there like not much on his contract? But I'm be honest saying Arsenal have reached an agreement on personal terms with Kone. Next step is trying to negotiate a deal with AS Roma, who value him at £43 million. And this is from late last night. So yeah, maybe this is a difficult one then. So depending on the sources, that £50 million seems to be about what the price is going to cost. I would say maybe that's going to be edging up. If this is true, and again, a lot of journalists say a lot of things at this time of the year. If Arsenal are seriously interested, I would say for Arsenal, I think Bruno Guimaraes might be a better bet for Arsenal. They're looking at trying to go back to back. I would say someone that's already played in the Premier League. And Bruno Guimaraes, you know, he just has to be there. He didn't even have to be a first team player at Arsenal, but I think he probably would be. I would be looking at it thinking, I can see Guimaraes working at Arsenal. I can see Bruno Guimaraes being a little bit old for an Ineos signing. Not that I would necessarily take that stance myself, but I think that's what they're looking at. Also, welcome to Rob or United. Good to see you, Rob. And Wizard Bet says, I want the next deal to be at Lewis Hall. The worst possible next deal for you is Somerville. Barwadi's still at the World Cup, so maybe that could be a later pivot, couldn't it? It could be a later pivot. But I wouldn't really. We've done the Barwadi stream recently, and I do like I do like Barwadi as a player. Maybe tonight, actually, we're going to see Morocco versus France. So I think Too Many's expected to be back, but I don't know if he's going to play the full 90. So maybe Too Many, Kone, and probably you'd be looking at Brady as well. Potentially, we could see these players that we're talking about go head to head. Obviously, Too Many's off the table, but we could be seeing Brady versus Kone, which might be interesting. Because I thought Brady got the better of Casemiro and got the better of I'm trying to think. So Casemiro, yeah, Bruno Guimaraes, David. I think so, David. I think so. I don't tend to collaborate with too many people. So I think the people I would collaborate with are maybe kind of like similar channels in the way that we have. I suppose what's the best way of saying it? I think when you have like similar audience of people that just want to discuss things without too much sensationalism, I think that yeah, with JB, definitely. I think with this at the moment, then myself and JB, obviously we've got other things going on as well, and the World Cup's been a bit disrupted. But no, I think definitely JB is someone I'll definitely get on the channel in the near future, and hopefully get an invite back. But no, we did do a big stream actually, probably maybe 2 weeks ago, and I think we were looking at the targets then, and I'm pretty sure myself and JB both said we don't see a lot of legs in the too many, but in terms of deals and potential, like too many would have been a good signing. I did see a comment from Danny B, who you're saying you think that Kone is a better player than too many. That's a bold shout there. Kone better than too many, says Danny B. Well, maybe we're going to find out the question of like how does Kone do versus Bawadi. Bawadi does not let you rest. So I'm hoping actually. I mean, we know too many is going to stay at Madrid. So, in terms of a spectacle, and in terms of like to give myself a bit more interest in France versus Morocco, it does look like one of the more exciting games. France are a very aggressive team. We saw Morocco as well. They like to take the fight forward, and I think Morocco is probably the best African team in the competition. I think Kone versus Boadi would be great to see. Boadi's only 18. I think bear that in mind. Boadi is 7 years younger than Kone. So the development prospects for Boadi are probably off the scale, aren't they? So yeah, it could be an interesting one. I think with this one, Rob says I don't want to be a big head, but I'm going to say I said there was no chance with too many. No, interestingly though, I kept doing polls and people were very very excited about the prospect. Kone good at ball carrying, dribbling, tackles, gets dispossessed a lot, so with better, commits a lot of fouls. They not great aerially at passing, a bit of a risk. I think with this one that I think there's going to be question marks over most players. That we know what Santos is good at. He's incredibly good in the air, very good at winning the ball back. It's kind of similar, I suppose, like with too many that he would win back possession loads, and maybe he's a bit more careful in possession. I think with Kone, maybe we haven't got much of a ball carrier in the team, and maybe that's something that we're looking at. But to be honest, yeah, if Man United did sign Kone, then I think we could have a conversation where we can look at Kone, Ederson, Mainu, and we can look at Santos and see, what's the plan here, what we buying, what are the combinations that could work. But I think the third midfielder for me, I think if you were negative about Edison, then okay, fair enough, I can understand why that people were a bit disappointed with certain signings. If you're negative or positive about Santos again, there's a. But I think if you then once you've got three midfielders in, then I think that we start seeing the pattern, that we start seeing the picture, and I think that probably the concern I've got is when we sign three midfielders, are we putting together a squad that is it going to be a good enough squad for Michael Carrick to try and do what he did last season with getting Man United as high up the league as possible, but also run on multiple fronts, better campaigns in the domestic cups. That's got to be a minimum, and at least like get through to the knockout stage of the Champions League. Try and surprise some of the bigger teams in the Champions League. At least not look out of our depth. I think is the minimum. And we can't really assess that until the transfer window's done and dusted. But I think that's a big consideration for a lot of people. A lot of people are looking at it thinking, are Man United going to be missing an opportunity if we don't get out? If Briley goes to a different club and we see Anderson's gone, Fernandez is gone, and some of these players moving, changing hands, it felt like I wasn't joking 2 months ago when I said this is the biggest window in the clubs for years. You've got to get this right because the penalty for getting it wrong is Carrick sacked, Manchester United missing out on Champions League, difficulty to recruit the best players in a year's time. So the knock-on effects are really bad. So I don't. I know when a lot of people look at it and they say Manchester United spend big when we miss out on Champions League. When we get Champions League, maybe we rest on our laurels a little bit, or maybe we just penny pinching. Maybe there is an element of that. But I think you've got to pretty much push forward and try and make sure you get this as well. So you say Alex Scott or Buwadi or Stiller now the best options in your opinion. So grain of salt with that one. I would say I would imagine I wouldn't be surprised if Man United look at Alex Scott as a serious option, and a lot of that interest might come down to price. But if Man United are prepared to spend, I suppose, how much they were like 75 million for Matheus Fernandes, they could be looking at that one. I'd think with Angela Stiller. My guess with Buwadi is he might cost too much money. Like he might be too expensive. And I think Angela Stiller might end up costing a bit more than people think as well. It's pretty difficult, isn't it? But at the moment, now please vote in the poll. Buwadi is winning. No surprise. I mean, we have been running a bit of a Buwadi positive campaign for about probably, I know, a few months on this channel, probably about 2 years on Red Devil United. We were pretty much always saying the same thing about him. So maybe there'll be a few more people jumping on the bandwagon of any of these players because of the France Morocco game tonight. Cody says some of the targets are more like swerve targets, not missed given the demands, say £130 million, £85 million. I think the wages, I would say, take it with a pinch of salt. Some of the journalists, I think there was a lot of reports talking about. So was it Matheus Fernandes getting 250,000? I think it's closer to 175. But again, Sangaro for you out of the poll. No, I think there was just like too many options. So we started off talking about Kone and Bawadi, and I think the other options were going to be Alex Scott has talked about loads as well. It's so lots. Yeah, exactly. I was getting like pretty good at writing too many, and I think you could probably rewind about maybe when was it about 2 years ago or 18 months ago. I got very good at writing Kvaratskhelia and Kadioglu, but unfortunately, those difficult to say but incredibly good players would have been potentially like transformative signings for Man United, wouldn't they? Yeah, no, I think too many. Yeah, unfortunately, it didn't happen, did it? So let me go to the poll. If you want to vote in the poll, I'll give you like another 30 seconds. But the question is just going to be, what is the best third signing? Kone's been talked about. I think and Arsenal are interested as well, which is disappointing. Who's going to be the next one? Most people are saying Bawadi. So what I'll do is close the poll. It looks like Bawadi's on 52%, so you got a few more seconds to vote if you want to vote. And then we can have a look at this result. Danny B says, how confident are you that we sign a third midfielder? I think based on like one being Ederson and being so cheap, one being Santos, who is essentially one that's going to be stepping up to potentially a first team role. I would be genuinely surprised if Man United don't sign a third midfielder, Danny. It wouldn't make a lot of sense, would it? So no, I say like confident in Man United is it feels a bit like I don't know. I don't have much confidence in Manchester United's owners as a whole, but in terms of whether we're going to get a third midfielder, it just wouldn't make any sense not to, would it? It just wouldn't make any sense not to get a third midfielder. Like we haven't bought world class midfielders. If Man United signed Anderson and too many, and that was our midfield window, I'd be thinking that's fine because Anderson, too many, Manu. Like, who else is going to, if you sign a third one, they're not going to get in the team, are you? So you may as well have an academy player. And I think Anderson can play loads of games. Too many can play loads of games. Manu will play a lot of games as well. But I think when you get Santos and Ederson, it's like Man United cannot transform their midfield by spending £85 million in the whole window. Like there's no way we can spend that sort of budget. We can't spend less than half of what Spurs spend when midfield is our priority. So I would say it's got to be like 90%, Danny B. If we don't sign a midfielder, then don't know what to say. Do not know what to say. Um, a big up to you, Tommy. Said tagged you on a funny Twitter post. Okay, I'll look at that in a second. Actually, I can probably be quickly check now. Big up to you, Almac. Almac, you legend. We've been looking for you. I remember all the information you gave us, like over a few years on Red Devil United. Where am I tagged? I'm trying to find it. Is this Red Devil Jane? No. Twitter's like useless these days. I can't see anything on Twitter. I can't see what I'm tagged on. I don't know. I'll try and find it. But what's it about, Tommy? When you say a funny post, is it another player linked to Man United that is like about 1% realistic? Because I think I might have to like mute Real Madrid on my timeline to actually improve the credibility of any information that's filtering through. But no, welcome back to Allo. Good to see you, Al. And I'll say to Al, what's your thoughts on? Because I think some of these players we've gone from having players that we obviously knew, like too many, Anderson, Tonali, they're very household names. I think Bawadi Sangare, they're definitely, we've been talking about them relentlessly, so I think most people are up to speed. I think Santos is one that people got surprised by. I think Kone for me was one that I hadn't really considered as being potentially Man United target until last couple of days. And I think as soon as we're seeing things happen, then clearly if Man United do these deals don't happen overnight. Like we know Man United are not particularly quick, and we know that transfers do take a number of months and things to. And if you think about it as well, you've got Vavell, you've got Wilcox, you've got the data team, you've got scouting reports, and you've got trying to think who else is involved, Jim Radcliffe, Barada, and then you have to get things ratified by the Glazers and approved. So this situation with Kone, I think Man United allegedly were interested in Kone like a year ago. I think they tried to get him from Chelsea. I think maybe this is one where I would say Santos deal happens with Man United this year, mainly because Chelsea do not get Champions League football or European football. Then Santos, for me, Santos makes a decision to leave Chelsea to get more game time. And again, it's no different from Man United reducing their squad last season. I think Chelsea are having to reduce their squad. They're going to have a lot of players that are just not going to see any football at all, and they're not going to be able to loan them all out. So they're going to get some money into the club as well. And I'd say I wish we'd signed Buwadi 25 million last year. Now he's 85. Do you remember we talked about it? It must be like 18 months ago. And then we looked at Buwadi in January actually, and I think in January there was like speculation that they would take 40, 45. I was just thinking like put an offer on to tempt them. It seemed crazy, didn't it? But in January we said, look, why not make an offer of like 40 million, test the resolve, see if they see if they sell Buwadi. And these players, when you see up and coming players that are very good, all that happens, all that happens is they just keep going up in value. Okay, I'll check that out later. I'll check that out later. Are you talking about yeah, getting the content creator? So Kone was offered to Arsenal for 43 million, and so yeah, general question. Okay, everybody watching, we're football fans. A lot of us watch multiple leagues. A lot of us have watched a huge amount of the World Cup. Why is Kone only 43 million? He's a French international. I know he's playing in the league. And Wheels Better says he's missed 23 games since January 2026, vulnerable to lower body muscle strains, particularly in his hamstrings, thighs, alongside occasional knee setbacks. These don't sound like this doesn't sound like a great scouting report, does it? So, mm, I don't know if people agree with this one. If there's like an injury issue and there is this sort of concern, I don't really care what I would be running away from that. But I think if you do like, okay, you can have issues, and I think people talked about Harry Kane years ago of having some injury issues. He obviously like got them sorted out. He obviously changed the way he trains, plays, runs, whatever it took, and you can see him get over those. I would be very concerned if like he's going to be going from Serie A into the Premier League, so if anything, you're going to be looking at more physical demand, more intensity, and I think the demand from Manchester United fans and the way Carrick wants to play quite aggressive, fast football as well is going to be increasing. So I would be, yeah, put it this way, I would be very skeptical if these things come out in a medical as well. But we'll see. I mean, I was a bit surprised that he's actually that cheap as well. And welcome to the comments. Iron Fist says, I'm okay with Ederson, performed decent in the Champions League, experience as well. I mean, if you watch the channel on a Monday night, quite regularly, Jules hosts, and he has been like he was a guest a couple of days ago as well. And he was somebody that he's quite a big fan of Ederson because he watched Atalanta maybe about 2 years ago. I think Atalanta have broken up their team a lot, and it's probably affected maybe how effective Ederson can be. I'll just say in terms of Ederson, I wasn't particularly impressed with what he's been doing for Brazil, but I think Brazil have largely looked a bit underwhelming. And I would say, based on the World Cup, I think in some games I've watched, Casemiro, Bruno Guimaraes, Ederson, I think the team has struggled as a whole. So I wouldn't read too much into the World Cup, positive or negative, regarding this one. I did see that we're linked to Ryerson as well. This is something that apparently is escalating a little bit. And I spoke to Helgi last night on a space on Twitter, and he's very, very optimistic that Norway are going to knock England out of the World Cup. We will definitely get Helgi on at some point to discuss Manchester United more than England versus Norway. But that might be something that's interesting as well. Decent player, I think definitely being talked about recently. I think most Norway players actually look very good against Brazil. So again, I wouldn't necessarily read too much into World Cup performances, but we talked about him. I think on United, say Red Devil United, maybe about it feels like about a year ago. Like Ryerson has definitely been someone we talked about in the past as well. Maybe this is going to be one where it would be very different. It might be a very different stream if we do the stream when the transfer window is closed, if we sign 5 to 6 players or however many you'd want to sign that compete with the starting 11. And Danny says, at this point, I don't care who it is, but at this point, Carrick has to have numbers. I would say sometimes if you got an organized, look at the World Cup as an example. If your team's organized and everybody knows their role and it's a decent strategy, then I think individual players that you can make the team look better than the sum of its individual parts. But I think with this one, you're asking quite a lot of Carrick to go from being interim manager 1 game a week to managing the Champions League. So I think it's a big step up. But I do agree with Danny. You've got to give him like, as many resources as possible. You can't have Michael Carrick managing. Can you imagine a scenario where Michael Carrick has to manage a Champions League match midweek and we've got no left back, or we've only got one available first team midfielder, or we've got no backup striker? Like these sort of things, it doesn't really matter which manager you are. You're being hung out to dry a little bit by the owners. You've got to have a credible left back backup. You've got to have at least a couple of players in each position. Otherwise, I mean, at the moment, we'll get a backup goalkeeper in, but can you imagine if we started the season with Bindier having to play game minutes? That would be for me just it's not incompetence, it's negligence at this point. But I do agree with Danny. I think this amount of people will come in. as well. So let me jump through the comments as well. Yeah, Ryerson I think is decent actually. Um, S. Madison in the chat, welcome to you as well. I couldn't see the comment, but saying yeah, I think there's people going to be getting a little bit twitchy. Bruno not getting younger. He's irreplaceable, says Tommy, but we do need to look for a marquee attacking midfielder that can learn from him eventually replace him. I would agree 100%. If Bruno Fernandes gets replaced, and at some point he will get replaced, like he will get replaced. But with Bruno Fernandes, I want Bruno's replacement to be in the team with Bruno. I want it to be an overlap. Can you imagine, like, you saw what happened when Manchester United lost Schmeichel and we pretty much had to go for some mediocre goalkeepers until we got Van der Sar. And there was a massive drop off, and it kind of opened the door to other teams to win trophies. Like Arsenal were a good team then. And I think the problem I've got is if Man United moved on, say Bruno Fernandes, they're going to have to do it at some point. But you need to make sure the person to replace them is in the team already. Or if you're going to play a different style of football, you've got to make sure these people are there. And I think overall, maybe over the next couple of years, maybe Bruno Fernandes needs to gradually be phased out rather than sell Bruno, replace him in one window, because that would be pretty risky. So at the moment, a lot of the attack functions around Bruno, so you've got to be very careful. Is this? Oh, G Wolf scheduled like a watch along, and then what I'll do, I'll just delete it after. But I think sometimes if there's like more than one stream scheduled, I'm using OBS. It's maybe just done that. So maybe that's the reason why some people were confused. But I don't know. Maybe maybe it's two streams at once. No, did I watch your link you played for Ghana? I thought Ghana were incredibly well organised, weren't they? So yeah, no, I did watch that game. I think from an England perspective, it was a tough watch, but no, I don't know loads about him apart from watching that game, Albert. Scott says if Bruno doesn't click this season, we're in trouble. I think Bruno will be fine. Like, I don't think Bruno Fernandes is an issue, given the way Man United play. I think if anything, maybe with Sancho, not Sancho, with Benjamin Sesko, Cunha, and Buemo, I think everyone, Dorgu included, I think everybody's kind of on the same wavelength as Bruno in terms of how our attack functions. So that's why I think disrupting it without getting a replacement in first would be a bit difficult. So I think Bruno Fernandes will always create chances, and I don't see there being any problem in the attack. If you look at it, actually, if you rewind the clock and look at matches from 2 years ago, Bruno Fernandes was still creating the same amount of chances, but those chances were landing to like Garnacho and other players that were less effective in terms of finishing. So I think overall, Bruno Fernandes will always create chances, and it's just about it for me feels like football's quite simple. Bruno will create chances. We just need to get a good goal scorer in the team, and it's almost like we need like a Van Nistelrooy that we can just feed. And I think hopefully Benjamin Sesko can do that with more regularity. So I think Benjamin Sesko is a finisher, and he does seem to be able to create space for himself. He does seem to be able to finish like quite difficult stuff as well. So, and he's a good aerial target. I think if anything, Man United just utilise him a bit more. So I'm positive about the attack. The question I've got really is I'm a bit worried in transition. I'm a bit worried when Man United lose the ball. I would have loved Anderson because Anderson works hard. He wins the back possession. And I can see that Santos is another person that wins back possession, wins his duels. So I can see why they've gone for Santos. I think with Kone, I'm a bit more 50-50 on. But again, if we did sign him, then we'd have a talk about it, see what people think. I think there might be a few people a bit less keen. Let's say Santos medical today. Yeah, exactly. Santos has like become literally out of nowhere, isn't it? Like, I know that Man United behind the scenes are, will be doing the deals, but I think Santos came from like Man United interested. I think what happened was Santos pretty much engineered the move, saying they want to leave Chelsea. And then, fair enough, Chelsea cashed in. I think Man United have also got a player that's quite serious. I think the story this morning that Newcastle offered him more money is exactly the opposite to Matheus Fernandes. Matheus Fernandes went with the biggest offer, Santos wanted Manchester United and chose the club. I'm not going to say that means he's going to work out better, but I think it's it's a good thing that he's ambitious enough to do that. Scott says Sesko's class. I think Sesko's really good. I think Sesko a few months to adapt to the league, a little bit of time to adapt to playing in a one striker system, whereas he played in two for Leipzig. A little bit of time to get used to playing with the teammates, and I think it's gone. Um, it's going to go better. I say market gone mad today. Arsenal just signed a French keeper. Newcastle two signings. Who have Newcastle signed then? I think yeah, Newcastle going to spend big because they're going to have crazy, crazy money coming in. And I'm fisted. I've watched Santos. I think he's decent, potential to be extremely good. Keep in mind, 50 million for a 22-year-old is cheap. And so many Chelsea fans are infuriated by Blueco for selling Santos. I have seen that, Iron Fist. You could actually, if you look at the video I did last night with We Deserve Better, then you will be able to see the comments. But I got a huge amount of negativity on the stream last night. People are very, very disappointed. I say, I'm not going to be overly positive about Santos, but I think there's a potentially big upside. I don't, for me, I don't see there being a big problem with the signing. But I think for some people, they were not happy at all. Good morning to you, Gregory. I think where you are, it is probably morning, isn't it? No. Ollie Watkins, 20 million sounds cheap, doesn't it? But in terms of Ollie Watkins, though, Ollie Watkins would be a good signing. It's always been about the price, isn't it, for Ollie Watkins? If you want a competent goal scorer, that's going to be, you know, a great. Again, you say backup. I mean, but Ollie Watkins is a credible threat to Sesko's position. Like he would be a. It's a bit like having like Sheringham, Solskjaer, Dwight York, and Andy Cole. You've got essentially twice as many people as starting positions. Absolutely perfect in terms of like strength and depth. You hope Morocco do France. So one of the good things about this match is I'm pretty much completely neutral in this, although it would be quite nice to see Morocco do them, but it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a tricky one, isn't it? I think some of the attacking play from like Elise, Mbappe, and Dembele is borderline ridiculous. But no, massive test for Morocco and potentially big test for France as well. Morocco don't hold back, so it could be. I don't want to hype up the World Cup matches, but this could potentially be one of the better ones. So Newcastle got a few deals done. 51 million deal for Johan Manzambi. I think with this one, maybe with Newcastle, they made good profit on Tonali, didn't they? So I think this is very much. I think this is very much Newcastle trying to like Newcastle knew these players were going to leave. It feels a little bit like, do you remember when Aston Villa sold Jack Grealish and they had the deals good to go straight away? I think Newcastle United have had a lot of deals planned, and it's going to be very much a case of like selling players at the maximum, buying players that are cheaper. If you think about it, 50 million pounds brings you one player in. You've got probably what 100 coming in for Tonali, 70 for the numbers are crazy, aren't they, at the moment? I think when the dust settled, Newcastle are going to look very, very different. I don't know whether it's going to be a big improvement, but yeah. Curtis says the Edison deal is starting to smell if he is not able to pass a medical. I mean, I still think it's going to happen, Curtis, but there just seems to be more noise around it than I've seen in other transfer windows. Then where was it? I saw somebody else. I think what people were saying is maybe it's like there's something about like meniscus or something like that. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm saying, isn't he good value? Yeah, I think it's good value. It's good value. I don't really know why we didn't look at him, Armac. Honestly, I don't know. But I mean, over the course of the last month, we probably mentioned must be like 20 midfielders, and I think we all probably had like our three or four favourites. And so, yeah, I'll say this, Iron Fist, and to everybody watching. fans said the same about like when we did I did a stream on Red Devil United about Aiden Heaven and about it was a bargain. He's going to be like fast track to the first team. It's a really good option. People were very negative because of his age. When it came to Dorgu, people were pretty negative because he plays in Serie A, he plays for Lecce, and people want to be negative about this, but there's literally nothing negative about Santos. Like Santos has not played for Manchester United. Chelsea fans, like Chelsea fans that I see social media stuff, and Chelsea fans that I respect that they do give an honest opinion are actually gutted. And I do believe that they're actually, this isn't just content for YouTube. I think Chelsea fans are genuinely disappointed with the selling of Santos. I think the only thing that's probably making people annoyed is the price. And we just have to look at it and say, this is 2026. The prices are stupid. Like the prices are, forget about the price because this is the market. The market has gone insane. We can't do anything about that. That we're buying and selling in the same market. It's just crazy, and there's nothing you can do about it. That what used to cost £30 million has very, very quickly cost 50 to 60, and what we thought would be a £60 million signing is suddenly pushing 100. There's just nothing we can do about that. But I think we just need to wait and see what happens. For everybody that's getting angry about Santos, we let's discuss it in like 6 months' time. Gregory says, "Why are we funding Chelsea?" I don't think it's about Chelsea though. I think it's about the player wanted to leave Chelsea. Chelsea want to sell him. I think it's a combination of opportunism by Man United, and again, this is a decision that Man United made, and Newcastle were there ready to spend the same amount of money, and Newcastle were ready to offer him more money as well. So, I mean, Manchester United were keen to get Santos. Newcastle, you could argue, were just as keen, if not more keen, as well. And so United only wanted to pay 75. So I think with this does the thing that annoyed me about the thing that annoyed me about Fernandez was Manchester United. I think ultimately they agreed to pay 85, but they wanted to pay 75 up front, then 10 add-ons. So it felt like Man United were prepared to pay pretty much the same as Spurs. But that makes me think whether did Man United really want Matis Fernandez? I don't know. I mean, overall, I think next season it's going to be very easy to have a conversation, isn't it, about whether Matis Fernandez is doing well at Spurs or whether Tonali is doing well at Spurs. And whichever players Man United sign, we can see who's doing the best. I think a lot of people are expecting Man United to struggle, but the window's not even closed yet, is it? And Kirstein, I think with this, then I'm just going to say if you don't like the Santos deal, then I think you probably just have to be open-minded and see how it goes. But you don't necessarily get a better player. I think you get a better player if you buy Anderson, but I think beyond a few players, it's going to be pretty tricky, isn't it? Um, if anyone's got any final questions, I did like think I closed. Did I close the poll? So I think with the poll, everybody wants Boadi as the next option. I think it's going to be yeah. United so Dice says you lot can get gassed of Santos. No, I think with Santos, what can I say? What can I say about Santos? I've never seen him play for Man United, and we could probably. What I would say is maybe give Santos till Christmas, and then if you want to talk about Santos, we can do it after he's played. Say give it 10 games or so. See what Santos can do in Michael Carrick's team. If it doesn't go well, then yes, well, we can be honest and say it didn't go well. If it goes really well, then would you pay £80 million for Alex Scott and look for value? Uh, Honestly, I think Man United should have offered. We should have offered 60 for Alex Scott. Make it be known to Alex Scott we want to sign him, and then Alex Scott just has to refuse to sign a contract at Bournemouth, and then we pretty much just wait and see if Bournemouth compromise. I think £80 million seems. I don't know. It seems a lot, but again, am I falling into the trap of saying everyone's too expensive? I don't know. It is a lot of money. I mean, Alex Scott was rumored. It was rumored that it would be like 50 to 65 a month ago. It just seems like a lot. But Phil said, no, I don't know too much about Santos. I have to be honest. I think he's very much like a backup player. I don't, and I think when you've got the team Chelsea have got, he's just always going to be a backup, isn't he? So why would Chelsea bench players? I mean, yeah, Chelsea spent £200 million on their midfield, so Santos is going to get benched, isn't he? I mean, Chelsea are not going to sell Moses Caicedo, are they? So that's probably the reason why. So, guys, thank you for watching. I should be able to do a stream maybe tonight before the World Cup matches, but I'll see what happens and see what news is coming out. But if I do something, it'll probably be a shorter stream. But thank you for watching. Thanks people that subscribed today. Thanks people that found the channel today as well, like Almac and a few other people. But I think I've seen in the comments that are new. So if you're new to the channel as well, thank you for watching. If you're able to share the stream, as always, with like other people, like-minded fans, etc., always great. Real saying has got some great stuff from Timu. Okay, we'll leave that there. We'll leave that there. I would say if you think the signings are good or bad or indifferent, we'll find out next year, won't we? I mean, I'm saying exactly the same thing I said with Lamans. I had no idea how Lamans is going to work out. I have no idea how Santos is going to work out, or Ederson, or Kone, or Buwadi, or Sangare, but we'll see. Right, guys, thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.